Welcome to Mobility for All's using Uber workshop. Next slide. So we're gonna get started talking a little bit about Zoom. So you can open a meeting in Zoom if you have the application downloaded. You can also open the meeting in your browser if you don't have the app. And then you can also call into the meeting using the number that was emailed to you. Next slide. So you don't have to have your video on, but video does help with communication. And then we also ask you guys to mute yourself unless you're speaking, just to cut back on background noise and echoes. If you have any questions, you can interrupt us or type it in the chat function. If you want to see the list of participants in this workshop, you can click on the people icon. And then this meeting is also being recorded to share with those who aren't able to make it to our workshops. So to start off, we're going to start with introduction. So just say your name, the city you live in, and if you've used Uber before. So my name is Anna, I live in Denver, and I've used Uber just to get a ride home, let's say from the bus stop or something. Next is Aiden.
Hi everyone, my name is Aiden. I live in Erie, and I've used Uber to get to the airport before.
Cool. Jen, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jen. I'm an ambassador, and I live in Boulder, and I use Uber to get me to all the doctor's office and whatever I need.
Thank you. And Leonard.
Hi, my name is Leonard. I live in Niwot. I've used Uber a bit. I've gone to some meetings in the area. I've also used it in other cities where I've flown to.
Cool. And then last is Angel.
Hi, my name's Angel. I live in Westminster, but work in Boulder. And I've used Uber a few times, mostly either to go to or from the airport, or if I've missed my bus and I have to be somewhere at a very specific time. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Yep.
Yes.
So Anna, Aiden, and I, we are with the Mobility for All program, and our objective is to promote equitable, affordable, and accessible transportation options for limited mobility individuals. So we work on transportation access through multimodal transportation education and programs for older adults, people with disabilities, low-income households, and anybody else who needs access to other modes of transportation. We really do believe that transportation is this linchpin service that allows people to access all other parts of their life. At the beginning of this workshop, we just want to acknowledge the COVID-19 pandemic. I know that it's changing a lot of ways how we travel, and even it's changing how we provide these workshops. We were doing these workshops in person, but now we're doing them virtually, and that's why we're recording this session. So the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed inequities. It's made it to where a lot of people who are especially vulnerable to the virus can't go out and about because they could potentially catch the virus. It's also made it to where essential workers, they have to go out to go work, and so they are still continuing to take the bus. But it is changing how a lot of people travel. So we are seeing an increase in the number of people who are walking and biking or taking on-demand services instead of taking fixed route buses. It's also making transportation more expensive because there's increased cleaning costs, there's increased disinfectant costs, but a lot of the providers have adapted to ensure that these services are safe for people to take. It's also transforming service deliveries. So you see nonprofit transportation providers like Cultivate and Via Mobility Services really switch their delivery. So they're bringing pharmaceuticals, medicine to people, and delivery of food to people. So we're hoping that some of these changes will stick around after the pandemic. So we do have a workshop series. This is one of the sessions. We have 5 workshops we do. This is using Uber. We also have a video and workshops on using Lyft, using RTD mobile ticketing, which is their mobile phone bus pass system. There's the Transit app, which helps you take RTD service. There's also Google Maps, which we focus on multimodal transportation planning. The goal of this workshop and the goal of this video is to increase confidence using Uber, also to connect you with our ambassadors. And if your ambassador provided you with this video link, you can also receive $50 to try out with Uber. Your ambassador will also be able to provide you the survey to take after watching this video so that you can receive those credits. So first, I want to just introduce our ambassadors a little bit more and have them talk about the program. So I will call on Leonard. If you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are an ambassador, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Leonard. I'm one of the volunteer technology ambassadors. I've always been a technology geek, so I love to learn about new technology and show other people how to use it. And this is a very worthy program for volunteer work because it is so important to provide people with alternatives. I've always been a big fan of alternative modes of transportation. And for people with mobility needs, this is especially important. Before the pandemic, we could travel with people along them and show them how to use the service, how to use the application on their phone after the training. Now we can't do that, but we can still provide some one-on-one help over the phone, maybe through an office hour or maybe a one-on-one Zoom. I think it's really important now, especially during the pandemic. There are people who can't afford to not use these alternative modes, and it's especially important that we help them.
Great, thank you, Leonard. I'll turn it over to Jen. Jen, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're an ambassador?
Sure. I wheelchair bound, and I used to live in a nursing home with a transition to an apartment in Boulder, so I really had to learn how to get around. So that's why I became an ambassador, because when I learned how easy it was to do all these things, I thought, well, other people need to know this too. Like Eleanor said, before COVID, we could go on trips with people and help them learn how to use the phone and apps and all that. But now we cannot, but we can absolutely help you one-on-one with the phone and virtual metaverse is to help people have independence.
Yeah, great, thank you. And I just want to kind of circle back to one thing you said. You did mention that you're in a wheelchair, and
Yep.
are you able to use Uber being in a wheelchair?
As long as I use my standard wheelchair, not my powered chair. Lyft and Uber can take it, but the bus can handle my power chair.
Oh, that's good. So when you're using your power chair, you would usually use RTD, but if you're in your manual wheelchair, you can use Uber, and then the driver helps you break that down.
Yep, I just tell them how to do it, and they're usually eager to learn, but you have to be able to tell them because they don't know it, so you have to direct them to it.
That's a good point. Yeah, so a lot of that is how Uber and Lyft, they both differ from Via mobility services, because with Via, all of the drivers are experienced helping people in mobility devices. But if you do use Uber or Lyft, then you will have to probably be able to tell your driver how to break it down because they have less experience. So that's a good point. Thank you so much. Great. Wonderful. So before we really get into the how to download the Uber app, I do want to talk a little bit about some housekeeping, just kind of baseline understanding for everybody watching this. There are differences in how everybody's phone looks. This is an example of an iPhone versus an Android. They're both smartphones, so sometimes people aren't clear on what that definition is. We also want to say that people have different preferences with how they use their phones. And we are not necessarily going to go into how to set up your phone from an accessibility standpoint. So we know if you're low vision or blind, you may have screen readers, and we're not experienced in that, using Uber or Lyft with those screen readers. So I think that the Center for People with Disabilities can help a little bit more with that. But if your phone looks different, don't be surprised. We just want to build that curiosity and that confidence to explore, to find out how to learn new things on your phone. The basic premise, the basic idea should be the same throughout. So before we really get started, I want to talk about safety, because apps aren't perfect. And sometimes some of these apps might tell you to cross the street in a place where you don't feel comfortable. Make sure that you're crossing at a crosswalk and use your best judgment on what is safe. Also, it's important to keep your emergency contact number written down outside of your phone, because these apps do use a little bit more battery than what you're used to on your phone. So if you write down that emergency contact number, if your phone dies, you can have somebody else call your emergency contact on your behalf. And I realize that a lot of people are concerned with privacy. So Uber does collect your name, your email address, your phone number. They also collect data on how you are using the trips. They also have your financial transaction history. So that's a lot of information that some people might be a little bit hesitant to use. Just keep in mind that the financial transactions do meet the highest level of online transactions, like Amazon or any of those other online purchases. And the usage for trips, that's primarily used for them to improve their app and improve their service. For example, we're going to provide $50 to you to try out this service. And even though we're paying for those trips, they're not going to tell us specific information about how you are using the credits that we are providing. So if we give both Leonard and Jen $50, they'll just tell us out of the $100 total that we spent, 6 trips were taken and it cost a total of $52. They won't tell us specifically that Jen went to CU Boulder on Thursday and the time. They won't give us that level of detail. If you want more information on privacy, please go to the uber.com website to find out their privacy policies. So another term you may hear is ride hailing. We may also use the term ride sharing. And what that is it's a similar service to a taxi, but they use an online application. They are a little bit cheaper than using a taxi because the driver actually owns their car. And so Uber and Lyft, they are just facilitating that connection between a driver who has went through a background check and had their car pass certain safety standards. They're just facilitating that connection between the driver and the person through the app. These are a little bit more efficient services than taxis because you don't have to necessarily go through a dispatcher to schedule the ride and coordinate back and forth between the driver. You're able to use your smartphone and communicate directly with the driver through the app, and that way you don't have to coordinate back and forth. So I do want to say that with COVID, Uber has changed their policies and they do encourage people to travel responsibly. When you open up the app, you will see that they'll have notices on how things have changed in COVID times. They have a list of requirements for passengers. They require that if you are symptomatic and have COVID-related symptoms, that you stay home and don't travel and expose the driver. They also want everybody to wear face coverings. They want you to keep the car and your hands clean. They've asked that people sit in the back seat. That way they can distance themselves from the drivers. And if possible, keep those windows open. So this is a little bit different from what it was before COVID, because before COVID, you were able to sit in the front seat. Until the pandemic is over, it's likely that they'll keep the same requirements in place. But if they do change those requirements, they will put it in the app to let you know what those changes are. Also, all the drivers must wear masks. So they need to confirm that the driver's wearing a mask also before they give them the ride. If your driver doesn't have a mask on, you can deny that trip, and you can ask that, you can tell them that you don't want to take the trip with them. If that is the case, then I would report to Uber through the app that your driver wasn't wearing a mask. But from what I've heard, people who have taken Uber during this time, they said that there's really high compliance and that their drivers are wearing masks and being considerate of their health as well. So we have a couple of documents that are part of this workshop series. We have this presentation, which you're looking at. We have emails that we can either email to you, or your ambassador can provide you a link to where they're going to be on our website. And we also have a travel trip planning worksheet. And I'm going to turn it over to Aiden to talk to us a little bit about this trip planning worksheet.
Thanks, Angel. So the trip planning worksheet is two sides. On the front, you'll see this page. It lists all of the different apps that we cover in our workshops. So Google Maps, Transit app, RTD's mobile ticketing, Lyft, and today's class Uber, with a little bit of information about each one. Additionally, we have additional transportation resources listed that can come in handy, such as the RTD Trip Planner and Next Ride system. So this is a phone or internet service. You can call in or go online, and RTD will help you plan out the bus trip that will get you to where you need to go. It's great, especially if your phone, if you don't have Wi-Fi or you ran out of data. It's really handy to be able to call RTD, and they can help you walk through some of those steps. Additionally, we have the RTD Accessoride, Via Mobility Service, Z-Trip, which is a taxi service in the area, GoGo Grandparent, which if you call them, they will book an Uber or a Lyft for you if you don't have a smartphone. It is a little bit more expensive because someone else has to do it, but it can be an option if you find yourself without your smartphone. Dr. Mack, who publishes the Getting There guide every year, that gives a ton of information on different transportation resources throughout all of the Denver Metro. The Area Agency on Aging's resources line, Faith in Action, their volunteer driver program. This can be a really good option for getting to and from medical appointments especially, but do note that right now during COVID-19 pandemic, they aren't doing volunteer trips. So keep them in mind for the long term, but it will probably be a little while until they're offering those again. And then lastly, we have Medicaid and Teleride, formerly known as VEO, listed as well, and a slot to write down that emergency contact phone number, with the idea being that you could bring this trip planning worksheet with you. So that's one side of it. On the reverse side of the paper.
Sorry, Z-Trip can do power tours if you tell them. So that's good to know, but via an RTD can do and then Teleride, but the rest have to be manual.
Perfect. Thanks, Jen. I didn't realize that Z-Trip could do power chairs. That's great to know. On the back of the worksheet, you'll see this grid, and this will help you plan out what mode works best for each trip. So you'll have the date and time, your starting address, where you're going, how you're going to get there, what it costs, and then any notes. So those could be, this one requires walking, or being dropped off at this airport terminal, or whatever those notes that help you plan out that trip can go right there. So this is a great option to look at places that you would regularly go, and then test it out in different apps and compare the time and the cost to figure out which mode works best for you. And once you have that figured out, you would take it with you. So I don't know if Jen or Leonard, if you have any examples of places that you would use this worksheet to help you plan out.
I would use it to go to the Longmont Public Library, which I frequently visit.
Perfect.
And I use it to go to CU campus or doctor's appointments.
Nice. Those are both great uses for it. It could be a handy tool to try out and figure out which mode is going to work best for that trip.
Okay, great. Thank you, Aiden. So we're going to go ahead and do a step-by-step approach to walking you through how to use Uber. We will do a faster demonstration after we go through the steps. If you need a little bit more time in this video, feel free to pause it after each step to catch up to where we're at if you need to. We also have videos on how to download and use the apps that we can share. They'll be on the website as well. So first and foremost, depending on if you have an iPhone or an Android, you're going to go to the App Store for iPhone or the Google Play Store for an Android. And these icons represent what they look like on your phone. And you will open up that App Store and you will type in Uber. So sometimes there are things that come up ahead of it, and usually those are paid advertisements. But what you're looking for is this black Uber icon, and you will click on Get or Install. So Get here, what we're showing is an example of iPhone. Install will be what it says for an Android. And then after it downloads, it will open up the app and it will say, allow Uber access to your location while using this app. I would say allow. Some people are a little bit hesitant to allow the app to have access to their location all the time. But for Uber and Lyft, it really is a better experience if they know exactly where you're at, because you don't have to type in the address. You can just request a trip and it will send it to where you're at using your GPS on your phone. So, and they will use this location while you're using the app. So you don't have to worry about the app following you outside at those times. So I would click allow, and then you're going to have to enter your phone number. So this phone number is how Uber creates your account. If you get into the situation where your phone number was used for a different account, you may get an error from the app saying that this isn't, that you need to enter in a password. You would contact Uber if that's the case and let them know that you are a new person with this new number and you need to create an account for yourself. So this phone number that you have, it has to be a cell phone number as well. It can't be a landline. So once you enter in your phone number, Uber will send you a text digit with a 4 or 6 digit number. If you have an iPhone or even some of the newer Androids, they'll automatically copy that in here, but I would recommend writing it down if you have to switch between the app and your text messages. Then you open up the Uber app again, and you would enter that in. If you don't have an account, you would click on I do not have an account and you would create one. So I think that this may have changed a little bit since we took these screenshots. But generally, after you enter in your after you've entered in your phone number, you'll have to create a password. It's important to write down this password. Honestly, I don't know what my password to my Uber account is because it just stays logged in on my phone all the time. But if you ever have to change devices or anything like that, it's good to know what your password is. So it will also ask you to accept Uber's terms and conditions. So you can read through those and accept those. And then for this purpose, we are recommending that people skip adding the payment method. But if you want to add it at this point, if you want to pause the video and go ahead and add your credit card, you can do that now. But we'll skip over it now, just because when we would do these in person, a lot of people wouldn't feel comfortable adding their credit cards at this point. So then it will ask you if you want to allow Uber to send you notifications. I think that this is an important step. You don't have to allow it, but just keep in mind that if you have the app closed and your car is about ready to arrive, those notifications will let you know that your car is about 5 minutes away. Whereas if you say do not allow notifications, you'll have to keep that app open the entire time to be able to track when the car is coming to your location. So after you have that set up, then you're ready to take a trip. The front landing page looks a little bit differently now that Uber has focused on Uber Eats and the other services that they do. But when you click on book a ride, I'll show you what that looks like in the real-time demonstration. You'll type in this bar where you want to go. And you can type an address, you can type a destination name, but just keep in mind that if it is a destination that has multiple locations, you'll need to know what street it's on or the approximate address That way you can pick and choose. So if you want to go to a Starbucks that has a store, like a lot of stores in your neighborhood, then you would have to know exactly which one you want to go to. So after you enter in where you want to go, this person searched from Pearl Street to go to Academy. It will show you the general route that the car will take. It will tell you how far away the car is. So you can't see very well on this screen, but there's like little cars that are driving around on this map. And it will take about 3 minutes for one of those cars to arrive to where you're at. Then it will also give you, after this overview, it will give you a couple of options. So some of these options can be overwhelming just because they keep adding new ones as they try to change as they try to attract more customers. But Uber Pool is a term for the shared service that is not available during COVID times. So Uber Pool means that you are allowing the driver to stop and pick up somebody else that's not part of your group along the way. So they'll probably go out of their way about 5-10 minutes, but they won't go like clear across town to pick somebody up. But again, that's not available right now. There's the Uber X, which is a 4-passenger Uber. It's actually 3 passengers now during COVID, but this is the standard one that's probably gonna be the cheapest option other than Pool. There's also Uber XL for bigger cars, so that if you have a big group of people, 6 people, up to 6 people, then you would order this one. In our area, we don't have wheelchair accessible vehicles, but if you do travel to cities like San Francisco or New York, they may have wheelchair accessible vehicles available. And then there's also premium options, which are really expensive, which are the most expensive option. So you would scroll through up and down, left to right, depending on your phone and the version of the phone that you have, to see what the cost of that trip is and then what the capacity is. So one thing that I want to point out is the time that it will take for the car to arrive to you is usually listed on the map. And then the time that you will arrive at your destination is listed underneath the option. So this particular option would arrive at 5:51 p.m. for the drop-off, and it costs $42.57, which is it's a pretty long trip. It looks like it'll take about 50 minutes to make. And then there's also down here in the bottom right-hand corner, there's an option to schedule that ride. And then after you decide to schedule, I'll get into how to do that, you would confirm to let the driver know that you want that trip. So when you confirm, you will have this little pin on your map, and you use 2 fingers to kind of move the map back and forth to let the driver know specifically where you want to meet the driver. This is really helpful for places like Pearl Street Mall, where there's tons of locations that the driver could stop and pick you up. So you would choose a location where you want them to meet you. After you verify your location, you'll receive information on who your driver is, their name, the make and model of their car, their rating, their license plate number, and a contact icon. And I'll go into those on the next slide. So, and this is what you'll receive when you're matched with a driver. So this particular driver, his name is Daniel. He's provided 1,195 trips. He has a 4.96 star rating. So that's pretty good, because out of the 1,195 people, the vast majority of them said that he was a 5-star driver. It has a picture of the type of vehicle that he has. It won't look exactly like his car, but it's basically the standard make and model and color of the car. Here, you will have his license plate number, so CES548. You'll have a description of the make and model. So he has a silver Nissan Rogue. You can type any pickup notes in this area. So if you are in your manual wheelchair, Jen, you can say, I have a wheelchair, and send it to him. Or you can call him. So if you don't feel comfortable typing out all of the notes and you feel like you need to talk to him to let him specifically know where you're going to be at, you can call him. And by calling him, you are not giving him your phone number necessarily. You are calling through the app. So don't worry about him getting your phone number. You can talk to him directly and say, I'm Jen. I am going to be on Pearl Street Mall. I'm going to be wearing a red sweater and I have my wheelchair. Hopefully you'll be able to break it down. And then he'll say, okay, I'll see you here. I'll see you there in a minute. So there's also this light, which Anna, I forget you explained this to me. It's like a strobe light or a flashlight to like let the driver know who you are. Is that right?
So I think what I read was it lights up your phone like a certain color so that the driver looks for that color if there's like a crowd. Okay. So you just like raise your phone up above everybody's heads, I guess, and then just like have him look for you.
Okay, great.
So did it and it made my phone red. So yeah, it's a color.
Okay, great. So it was red. And then did you actually use it, Jen, to like show the driver, or were you just testing it out?
I was just testing it out, but yeah, that's what it's for, to kind of flag the driver down.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm sure, especially at night, like being able to flag the driver down with the light is probably useful.
Yeah.
So then after you have this information about Daniel, you will want to meet your driver outside the main entrance of the building. So if you haven't contacted him, letting him know exactly where you're going to be, you'll want to go to the most logical spot. Sometimes the new apartment buildings, it's not clear where the entrance is. So sometimes you might have some issues with them picking you up in a particular location. But what you want to do is look for these stickers. And this one has Uber and Lyft on it. Don't be surprised because a lot of these drivers do drive for both Uber and Lyft. And sometimes sometimes they only do one, but don't be surprised if you see 2 stickers. And then when the driver pulls up, what I do is I look for the color of the car first. I'm looking for his gray car that looks like a little mini SUV. And as I see one, I look to make sure that it's the same license plate number. And then when they pull up, you'll wait for him to confirm your name. So you'll, when he rolls down the window, he'll say, "Are you Jen?" or "Are you Leonard?" And then you confirm yes. And then basically you can get in the car at that point. So the cost of the trip varies. So I do want to say that there's a wide variety here on this particular option that they're showing between like the pool, which is not in play now, but this is $33, to the Uber XL, which is $87. So the reason why these vary so much is because of the number of cars that they have out on the road, right? So they also do something that's called surge pricing. And what that means is if you're at peak time when there's a lot of people who want to take Uber, then they're going to increase the cost of the trip to get more of those drivers out on the street. So if you want to lock in the price, we recommend pre-scheduling rides so that you're guaranteed the cost of the trip. And it will be, they still try to like guess how much it's going to cost at the particular time that you're requesting it. And so it might change a little bit from the estimate that they provide right now versus what they provide for the pre-schedule. You can pre-schedule your rides up to 30 days in advance of your trip. But one thing I do want to note is that it really depends on the availability of Uber drivers. So if you live in a place where there's not a lot of Uber drivers, you're probably not going to be able to pre-schedule your trip. So we've had this in Northern Longmont or Erie, where our ambassadors aren't able to pre-schedule because there's just not enough demand for Uber to be able to predict if there's going to be drivers in that location in the future. So you can still request trips, Uber trips from those locations in real time, but I would just add a couple extra minutes onto that because it's going to take drivers a little bit longer to drive to where you're at. So for scheduling the trips, this may look a little bit differently depending on if you have an Android or what version of iPhones, but you can schedule the trip by rotating this up or down and change the hour, the minute, and then make sure that you change the AM versus PM. And then you would continue. And You would continue and it would be set. And I'll show you in the demonstration where that trip reservation or that trip schedule lives. Additionally, you can add some of your favorite locations by clicking on Choose Save Places. So I would recommend doing this as you sit down with your travel planner at home and you think of like your 4 or 5 top locations that you would want to take Uber to. And you could save those locations. You could save it as my daughter's house, or you could save it as doctor. It doesn't have to be the actual title. And you would enter in the address while you're at home. And then when you're out and about, all you have to do is just really type in mom's place or whatever you had used as your saved location. So here are some safety tips. We're recommending that you stay inside until your ride is getting close, and you have your phone in your hand. We're making sure we want you to make sure that you're getting into the correct car. I know that there's some fear around Uber and Lyft just because of some bad news that you've heard, but if you let the driver confirm your name instead of asking your driver if he is Daniel or if he is the person that you're expecting, then you'll know that he knows who you are through the app. So if you wait for him to say, "Are you Leonard?" then you are rest assured that he got the order through the app. Sit in the back seat. Always wear your seatbelt. Check the driver's rating. If you see that you got matched with a driver and he has a 3-star review and you don't feel comfortable with that, you can cancel that trip. You don't have to take that trip if you don't feel comfortable with the driver's rating. Also, you can have your smartphone app open and you can follow the car's route along the way. So I did this when I took Uber from the airport one time. My driver took a wrong turn and I could see that we were moving off the course that they had recommended. And I just brought it up and he said, "Oh yeah, I made the wrong turn." And he just did a U-turn when it was safe. Also, never pay in cash. One of the reasons why this system works or is so efficient is because people are paying with credit cards or debit cards or their Venmo accounts, and they don't have to carry cash with them. And that doesn't make the driver vulnerable to being robbed or anything because he or she doesn't have cash on them either. At the end of the trip, after you get to your destination, you will have the option of tipping the person who gave you a trip. You don't have to tip them, so you can leave it at whatever cost it was. What really helps the drivers is having good ratings. So here, this person rated Daniel 5 stars, and then they gave him a compliment. So those compliments help other passengers understand if they should take a trip with Daniel. Again, you can select pre-selected tip types. You can give them a rating, give them a compliment, and then click done. Sometimes I forget to do this, so it'll be active for a little bit. I forget how long after the trip, but about 24 hours, I think you can review and give tips. After that point, you're not going to be able to go back and give your driver a tip. So I'm going to go ahead and do a demonstration now. Do we have any questions while I'm getting ready for the demonstration?
I guess if you could just show us if you can add stops to our trip.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And also, you cannot use your credit to pay for tips. So you have to have like a credit card on file to pay for that tip.
Yeah, that's a good point. So at the end of this, after you watch this video and take the survey, you'll get $50 to use. You can't use those credits for a tip. Thanks for reminding me about that, Jen. And then I will show how to add a stop. So I have a folder for all of my transportation and travel apps. I'm going to click on Uber, which is the top middle one. And this is the new landing page. So you can see that you don't just automatically open to a map anymore. So below the blue section, there's ride, food, and package. So they could deliver packages for people as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on ride, and it's automatically assuming that I'm home. And so it knows my location. I'm gonna go ahead and select Sister Carmen Food Bank as my destination, which it's calculating, since I live in Westminster, it's calculating it from Westminster. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and I am going to change my home. So I'm gonna click on home. I'm going to change that to Kestrel. So Kestrel Apartments in Louisville. And where to, I'm gonna say Sister Carmen Food Bank. So I'm just gonna start typing in Sister Carmen. And there's a couple different Sister Carmen locations. I know that there's like a thrift store and the food distribution center. So you can see at the top, it says food security meetings. I actually saved that in a previous demonstration as one of my favorite destinations. But I'm gonna click on not the thrift store, which is the next one down, but I'm gonna click on, it's actually the top one, but I'll click on the top one, which is the food pantry. So it's telling me right now that since I'm at Kestrel Apartments, that the car will arrive at Kestrel in 3 minutes. And I can move my map and I can see right there that there's a car that is right outside of the Kestrel Apartments. You can zoom in by like bringing your fingers from the center together apart, and that will zoom into that map. So it looks like there's a car who's turning off of Hecla to go on to 42. So I can see that he's super close or she's super close. I'm gonna pull up my options at the bottom. So it says choose ride, I'm pulling it up. And I have a couple of options. There's the Uber X, which can fit 3 people. And that will arrive in about 5 minutes. And it will drop me off at the food pantry and Sister Carmen at 1:34 p.m. And it will cost me $8.89. That's probably about as low as any of the Uber trips are gonna be. They don't get much lower than that because it calculates what it costs for the driver to get there and everything. There's also Uber XL, which is the large, and that will cost me $14.37. And then there's the Uber Black, which is probably like a luxury, like limo service type vehicle that costs $19.27 to get to Sister Carmen. So probably not going to take that. But I can pull up and I have other options. There's also the low emission ride down at the bottom. It has a little green leaf. That's the Uber Green. And I can see that that's $10.49, the one with the little green leaf. So you're paying a little bit extra to encourage somebody to drive an electric vehicle. And then I just scroll up, there's other options with pets. So if you have a pet with you, if you select that, you are getting into a car where the driver is okay with you allowing you and your pet to go somewhere. And then at the very bottom, you see that there's transit. We'll get into that a little bit later, and that there's the pool, and then that's unavailable. So in non-COVID times, that Uber pool will be the cheapest option. And then there's also premium options down below, which I'm cheap, so I don't typically go into those. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select an Uber X because that's the most affordable option for me right now. So I selected it, and it tells me an Uber X can fit 3 people. My drop-off time will be 1:34, so it's like 5 minutes from now. So it'd be like a pretty quick trip. It will cost me $8.89. I'm gonna try to schedule this trip. So I'm gonna click on the bottom right-hand corner. There's a car with a clock face. I'm gonna schedule it for tomorrow, December 17th at 2 p.m. because I'll have to go there after lunch, let's say. So I'll set it and schedule. And I click schedule, and then it's gonna say, tell me where you want me to pick, or it's basically asking you to confirm the pickup location. So this is probably not where I want to go. If I live in the senior building, I want it to pick me up outside the senior building. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the pin right in front of the senior building. They're at Kestrel. And then I would confirm that pickup. And it will sometimes ask you save 10% on this ride with Uber Pass. You can just skip that trial. And then it asks you to keep the community safe. And it's telling you that you're gonna sit in the back seat only. All rides now have one less seat available. Open the window if possible. Wash and sanitize your hands. And then I am required to click on that box at the bottom saying that I'm wearing a mask and that I understand that all riders and drivers have to wear masks. And then I'm gonna confirm that trip. And it's scheduling that trip. So notice that it changed the estimated cost. So now the estimated cost is $10.02. That's because there's a little uncertainty about what traffic's going to be like at the time that I need to go to Sister Carmen tomorrow. And so I will click done and my trip is scheduled. So I don't necessarily know, where that's at this point, because there's no obvious place where it is. So you're going to have to go to your trips, which is in your settings. So up in the upper left-hand corner, you will see kind of a hamburger type 3 lines. Click on that and it brings a pop-out menu. So down at the bottom, you can scroll up and down. I'm going to click on your trips, the top one. And it's looking at my past trips, and I have a bunch of past trips that are canceled because I cancel a lot of trips. And then I click on that on the upper hand. Let me do that again. In the upper right hand corner, there's past. I will click on that and it will give me options. I have business trips. So if I had a business account that was separate from my personal account, any upcoming trips, I can click on that. Family trips. So one thing that Uber does that's different than Lyft is you can have a family account where you pay for your mom to take an Uber trip if she's not comfortable using smartphones, or you can pay for your spouse or whoever. So I'm going to click on upcoming and it has the trip for tomorrow. And I'm going to go ahead and cancel this trip because I'm not going to go on it. And it will ask me, are you sure you want to cancel this reservation? It says you may be charged a cancellation fee. You are charged a cancellation fee if the car is within 5 minutes from where you're at. And that's because the car had to drive from someplace to get closer to you and they've already spent some money on the gas to get there. So since I'm canceling so far in advance, I should not get a cancellation fee. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel my reservation. And so that's what that looks like. I'm going to do one more example to show how to add a stop along the way that Anna mentioned. So I'm going to start my location at the Lafayette Public Library. So Lafayette Public Library. So I can look down. I don't have to type the whole thing. I can see East Baseline Road. Yeah, that's the destination I want. So it's the 4th one down. I'm going to click on that. And let's say that I want to stop along the way before I go to Kestrel. Let's say that I'm going to type in Kestrel Apartments, go back, sorry. I always do this. So I'm going to see that on the right-hand side, there's a button, click on that. And then we have 3 stops. So my home, I'm actually going to change that to the Lafayette Public Library again. Lafayette Public Library. I'm going to stop along the way at the park and ride to pick up a friend. So I'm just starting to type in park and ride. And it's trying to guess where I want to go, and it's not guessing the Lafayette park and ride. So I'm going to have to go back and stop at, I'll have to type in Lafayette park and ride. So Lafayette Park, and then I can see at the top on South Public Road that there's Lafayette Park and Ride. And then my final stop is going to be Good Samaritan. So I just type in Good Sam and it automatically knows that Good Samaritan Medical Center. So I'll click there and it will ask me if I want another stop, but that will be done. It says, please keep the stops to 3 minutes or less. And that's just so that the driver isn't sitting idly in the car. And basically it gives me that option with the stop along the way. So I'm starting off at the public library, and the park and ride stop, if I pick up a friend who took the bus from Boulder, I would stop by the park and ride right there to pick up my friend, and then we would go along the way to Good Samaritan, and then that would be our final stop. So I can confirm this right now. It's not giving me the option to schedule it for tomorrow, so I'm assuming it's because they can't predict how many drivers are going to be there, but I'll confirm it, and it's asking me to confirm my pickup spot again at the public library. So it wasn't quite in front of the public library, so I would just move my map so that I'm right in front of the public library. I will click confirm. I will confirm again that I'm wearing a mask, and I will confirm and ride. And then right now it's going through the process of finding me a driver. And it looks like it has plotted out the route. It's connecting me to the driver. The driver's about 8 minutes away, so I know I'm gonna have to hurry up and cancel this. So this is my driver. I'm gonna go ahead and go down, scroll down to cancel. Yes, I want to cancel that. So Fernanda was my driver, and I canceled that trip. So that's how easy it is. Do we have any other questions before we go back to the demonstration?
Do you need to have a credit card on file to use the credits?
So for Uber, no, you don't have to have a credit card on file. But if you're using Lyft, when you take the watch the Lyft workshop, you will have to have a credit card on file. You can just, they'll show up. I'm going to click on that hamburger in the upper right hand corner or upper left hand corner again. And you will have your wallet, I believe. Let me see. So this is your wallet where you have all of your credit cards on file, and down here you will have vouchers. So when I send out the link after you take the post workshop survey and you've created an account, I'll send you a URL link. You'll click on that and you'll claim the voucher. So you can see in this voucher area, like how much money you have left on that. So once we give you $50, as you start using it, it will deduct it from that, and they'll in the voucher area, it will let you know how much you have left. Okay. Any other questions before we go back to the to the PowerPoint presentation? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that. I will start sharing my screen again. Okay. So again, you'll want to add a credit card payment for the tips, like Jen had mentioned earlier. You can't use the credits that we provide you for the tips. So you will want to put your preferred method. They do have a lot of different options now. They're adding more and more. So you can add a credit card or a debit card. If you have a commuter benefit from your employer, you could add that in here. You can also add PayPal or Venmo, and then they also have the Uber gift cards. So you could purchase those at any of the grocery stores or purchase them online. After you add the payment, you would click next. And I want to go in a little bit to talk about public transit, because I briefly showed you what it looked like on the demonstration, but I do want to say that the transit option, like the cost of transit, may not always be accurate based on your demographic group. But when you click on transit, you can also see the step-by-step transit trip that it would take you to get to the same location. So this is a really good place to compare how long it would take you to take transit compared to the Uber, and what that cost difference is going to be. Because if you do a search and it tells you that you're going to spend X number of dollars on an Uber trip, you can easily just scroll up a little bit more and select transit and see how long that's going to take you and see what that cost is going to be. So we'll go ahead, and everybody's going to practice now on their own. So I encourage everybody to spend about a minute looking at their looking in their Uber app to plan a trip that they would take like once a month or something like that. So we'll go ahead and just focus on that one trip for about a minute. Okay. Did everybody get a chance to plan out a trip? Okay, seeing some head nods here. Okay, so Jen, we'll go ahead and start with you. Where did you decide to go, and like what did you learn when you did your trip plan?
I live hall on the Hill campus, and I learned that it's like 10-minute trip and it only cost $8.72.
Okay, great. And you said it took 8 minutes. Is that what you said as well, or 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So what about you, Leonard? Where did you go, and what did you find out?
Let me go ahead and share my screen.
Okay, yeah. Let me stop sharing this one. Go ahead.
Okay, can you see that now?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, I'll go to my Uber app. And I'm going to go ahead and schedule this for tomorrow, but you can do that right at the outset, or you could do it later. But just to make things simpler about canceling, I'm just going to shift it to tomorrow. And I'm going to go from my home to the Longmont Senior Center. I already have that as a saved place here in the middle. And it's already mapped out the route. And since it's scheduled, it doesn't give a arrival time. But UberX for that trip from here in Niwot is about $18.42. In my case, there isn't a transit alternative because I'm about 12 to 15 minute walk away from the Diagonal Highway where the RTD has service. So it's probably not showing me because of that. But if I went back and I was going, for example, from instead of my home, going from the Longmont Public Library. Looks like I have to type it all in. From the library to the senior center. There is a driver available in 6 minutes. You can see there in the map. And it's $8.54 for the UberX, the lowest cost Uber ride. And down here, you can see there is a transit option. The Bolt does go right by the close to the library and the senior center. And you can see that leaves at about 2:06, and that must be right now instead of being scheduled. But just for a cost estimate, it is about $3. So that's an alternative to taking $8.54
Yeah,
Uber ride.
great. Yeah, and just a side note, in Longmont, all the local buses are actually free. So if you use one of the local buses, then it's free versus one of the regional routes. So the Bolt is a regional route. So you would have to pay on that, but not if you got on one of the 300 series buses.
Great. That's a very good point. Thank you. I'll go ahead and stop there because you've seen the other parts about scheduling the ride and canceling it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Leonard just did the demonstration for that. So we're at the end of the workshop. That may not have been enough for everybody. If you need more assistance, then our ambassadors are able to set up a call with you to talk you through it a little bit more. In order to claim the $50, we do have a post-workshop survey that you'll take, and your ambassador or the Mobility for All staff will be able to send you the link to take that. It's just in a Survey Monkey. So you would just take that to let us know how useful you felt this workshop was. And then after you take that workshop or take that post-workshop survey, then we will we'd ask you to add a credit card to your account or PayPal, and then we'll be able to issue you credits. So that's the end of the workshop, but don't hesitate to reach out to Mobility for All. Our phone number is 720-564-2218. And again, you can call us and we can walk you through over the phone or answer any questions. And then our email address is mobilityforall, all one word, the number 4, sorry, not the number 4, the FOR instead of the number 4, at bouldercounty.org. And you can email us at any point with questions. So that's the end of our presentation, unless anybody has any last questions or things they want to bring up.
I did want, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
Oh, sorry. Because I'm in a wheelchair, some drivers cannot take wheelchairs. So I always have to tell them before they come. So I do not call them and tell them, or put a note, whatever, but that way they know in advance.
Yeah, that's a good point. So have you had a situation where you didn't tell the driver ahead of time that you had a wheelchair, and when they showed up, they weren't able to take you?
Yeah. And he called another driver for me, but it just saves the time for doing that if you let them know ahead of time.
That's a good point. Okay, thanks. What about you, Leonard? Do you have any last comments or questions?
I want to add that if you're planning a trip with the Uber app and you know that there's transit options nearby, but they don't show up, I wanted to add that if you take our class on the transit app, you'll find a very nice complimentary application there in that it will show you primarily the transit apps. But if you alternatives, like for example, would show that there's a Bolt bus that passes within walking distance of my home. But it also, if you link that transit app to your ride sharing apps, it'll show you those alternatives too. So it's a good complement to using the Uber app.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I probably, when I'm doing my cost estimates, I probably do start in the transit app more than I do with the ride sharing apps because my default is usually the bus. Yeah. Aiden, did you have something you wanted to add? I see you.
2 quick things. One, I checked, you have 24 hours to give your driver a rating, and you have 30 days that you could add a tip if you decide you wanted to later.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And the other thing, every once in a while, this happens to me. When I'm at my house, Uber, for some reason, thinks that my address is my neighbor's address. It's just the GPS area doesn't quite align. So if you do notice your app doing that, saving your home address can be a great way where you don't have to worry about that. So just a little note to make sure that they know where you are.
Yeah, that's great. I know that with Josephine Commons in Lafayette, that there's a big problem that the Uber and Lyft drivers always want to go around to the back of the building. So they always add little comments like meet me under the awning in front of the building. So that's good. Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing now and turn off the recording.